Hello and welcome to Getting Connected. My name is Deb Hann and I will be your hostess with the mostess for this next few days. So thank you so much for leaning into this experience, this exercise. And it is my genuine hope that this is an exercise that gets you better connected to you, helps you better recognize your wise opportunities. You know, we are so often told and affirmed that, you have your answers and you know what to do and trust yourself, back your instincts, all of that kind of thing. And by the very same token, when you're told to do that, you might also be racked with confusion, frustration, anxiety, doubt, all of that. So what are you meant to do? How do you run with that, right? So the point of this exercise, and what I really hope you get to take away from this piece, is some resources and tools that can help you better discern your wisdom versus your confusion. And maybe even how to cut through your confusion to the other side, to your wisdom. Because the truth is, I genuinely do believe that we are the wisest people we will ever meet. I genuinely do believe that we do know what's best for us. By the same token, I also know that we are our own worst enemies. We can talk ourselves into something just as quickly as we can talk ourselves out of something. And therein lies the great shame. Because I do genuinely believe that each and every one of us are born for great things. We are born to serve each other in some way, shape or form. And when we talk ourselves out of that sense of contribution, possibility and service, in real terms, that's a tragedy, because we deny somebody the gift that we've been born to deliver them. I know that sounds extreme, but, trust me. And let's see what's in this for you. So today, I'm going to share with you the first of 3 principles that I hope you can use at any given moment. Like I say, moment to moment, day to day, just in everyday situations and circumstances, wherever you have this conflict. So let's grab your favorite pen and your favorite journal or notepad and settle yourself in for the next few moments and see what's in this for you and how you can challenge yourself to apply this awareness practically so that you can better connect to your own wisdom. And we're going to start with principle number 1. Getting that neck up, that check up from the neck up. All right. It's going to connecting to your ego. Connecting your ego to your awesomeness. And no, it's not a spelling error per se. I'm actually going to see if Oxford can recognize this spelling, and maybe you will agree with me at the end of this process. Just lean in, people. Let's have some fun with some language and words. Okay, so first and foremost, this piece around ego, this expression of self. Ego gets a bad rap sometimes. We often, if we describe somebody as being egotistical and having an ego, very rarely a compliment. But in real terms, like I say, ego is the expression of self. It is the physical manifestation of who we are. And who we are is really born out of 3 very strong hardwired needs that make us who we are. And this does not discriminate, by the way. It doesn't matter where you live on the planet, doesn't matter what colour your eyes are, doesn't matter what hair type you are, what blood type you are. If you draw breath, if you have red blood surging through your veins, this applies to you, right? Every single living person on the face of the planet has this surging through their person in some way, shape or form. These 3 hardwired needs come very simply down to I need to look good, I need to be right, and I need to know. And straight up, let me affirm to you, this look good routine is not about checking our look in the mirror and being fine, all right? This looking good routine is about self-preservation. And so just think, how many times have you been in a meeting or a social situation and you've not spoken up? because you didn't want to look foolish. Yeah? Or you said no to an invitation that might have been Zumba or yoga or just something a little bit different that you might have ordinarily done, and you've said no because you didn't want to look foolish, right? And a whole myriad of other things, because you've got a tape playing in your head about, no, I'm not good at that. That's just not my thing, right? Who knows? You could be awesome at it, for crying out loud. But nonetheless, this is that self-preservation piece. Same is true with this need to be right. We can be very convicted about right. My version of right is more righter than your version of right. We can even have a conversation around, no, I respect your opinion, but this is my opinion. And, the truth is there's usually multiple versions of right. How many times have you found yourself, again, could be in a social situation where you find yourself talking about the same thing, talking towards the same outcome, you just have different pathways. Not that one is more right than the other. It's just that we have a tendency to just be a little passionate about, no, my version of right is better than your version of right. And this need to know is very much like a universal law in the context of, if you drop a pen or let go of a pen, it's going to drop to the floor. Same is true with this piece around our need to know. We're hardwired to know. This magnificent piece of software that lives between our ears, our brain, it's hardwired to deliver answers. And so in the absence of truth, it will take the fragments of information that it has available to itself to construct a story, to put something to those pieces of information, and constructs a story that we can validate it. It looks pretty right to us, and it can make us look pretty good, if only to ourselves, look good to ourselves. And just as an example, you might recognize an appreciation for, maybe you've been driving down a road and you've come across a car accident. You haven't seen it happen as you're going past, just the authorities are there, the police are there, ambulances, whatever else. And you can see how where the cars are wrecked and whatever. And we make up a little story in our mind as to how that happened, whether, someone's run a red light, or, it's been raining, the roads are slippery. And we'll create a little story. And like I say, we've taken the evidence that we've been able to, glean in the moment and put together a story. Not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong, but we do this all the time, whether it's events like that, or we look at the way somebody behaves, or make up a story to kind of justify their position or justify our position. We can see movies, read books, listen to music. We put meanings to things, all right? We need to know things. We need to know where they sit and how they apply. So keep this stuff in mind, because all of this plays out as a story that runs through our mind, and most of it serves to self-preserve. Most of these stories are designed to keep us safe in some ways, and so often keeping us safe keeps us small. Okay, we don't run the risk of, what if, leaning into the possibility. So just stay with this just for a moment. I want you to think about this story, the stories that we tell ourselves to look good, to be right, and to know. Because for all the amazing stories, the inspirational stories that we read, watch, listen to, whether it's, memes, blogs, books, movies, and so on, the most important words you will ever speak, or hear for that matter, are the words you say to yourself, about yourself, when you are by yourself. You go back to that ego piece, those hardwired needs. What is the story you are saying to yourself consistently? All right? This is where it lies. What are you telling yourself? Because these are the pieces that you will cling to. And you will replay these over and over and over again. And I wish I was exaggerating around this, because, we have anywhere from 90,000 to 120,000 thoughts a day, depending on whether you're male or female. The saddest thing about that is that as much as 90%, and in some cases more, of those thoughts are the same thoughts you had the day before, and the day before that, and the day before that. So if we are repeatedly saying things that are keeping us small, keeping us in a neat little box where we know we look good, where we know we're right, and we know what we know, where's our opportunity to shine? So let's take a moment to have a little deeper look at that, because these are the stories that we're listening to, right? Not necessarily the inspirational stories. Sometimes we can read a blog or listen to some music, and it really speaks to us. It really connects with us. Yeah. So sometimes they are things that just create a little wedge of difference for us, and we can cling to, right? But so often they're not enough, and we come back to that. Oh, well, I tried, right? I tried. Did you? So let's come back to these stories, because there's only ever two types of stories that we tell ourselves. We're either telling bedtime stories or we're telling awesome stories. Now, you might go, well, bedtime stories aren't all bad. That's once upon a time, happily ever after, all of that kind of deal. Not necessarily. These are acronyms, beautiful people. So a bedtime story is where things didn't quite go according to plan. Well, it's not my fault. If only so-and-so and this and that and three bags full. Right? There's the first element. Can you guess what the E and the D might be? If blame is the first thing. If you guessed excuses, right there. Again, well, I couldn't help it. This happened and that happened. And if only this was going on, I can only work with what I've got. You can fill in the gaps. You've got your own version of all of this that goes on. And then the last one is something you may or may not instantly recall to mind. But the D is denial. It's that head in the sand piece. It's that piece where we find ourselves saying things like, oh, it'll be all right, it's all good, nothing to see here, it'll all be okay on the night. And we can just kind of, muddle along and amble along. These are the bedtime stories. These are the stories that keep us trapped in our story of looking good, being right, and no. Okay? These are our stories of justification, basically. An awesome story, conversely, is where we actually take a moment to look into the mirror of the bedtime story. Because I do want you to recognize that each and every one of us I have bedtime stories, right? Every hero that you've ever aspired to, or anyone you've ever looked to for some form of inspiration, I assure you has had and still has bedtime stories. The difference is how long they stay there. Some people will wallow their entire life in a bedtime story with the oh me, oh my, it's not fair conversation. But those that show up to serve, to make a difference, to add value to their life, to the people they live with and the people they're born to serve, challenge their bedtime stories alongside an awesome story. Or rather, I should say, they rewrite their bedtime story as an awesome story. They have a look at their story and go, where did I own that? What could I have done differently? Where did I have an opportunity to have influence? What was in my control? What did I give away in relation to control and influence? So an awesome story can start with actually having a look in the mirror and asking yourself, where did I have ownership, or where could I have ownership? What might I do differently next time, or even now in the moment? The other piece is to be able to look at that blame, excuse, denial conversation and challenge yourself with an accountability. Now, whether that's accountability to yourself, whatever that looks like in some form of measurement or progress or growth, or maybe it's accountability to someone that you do life with, whether it's somebody in your household or, a study buddy or a workout buddy, a walking buddy, someone that you can actually pair up with and get in step with. Or maybe it's accountability to those that you feel born to serve, where you have a sense of service around. Where is the accountability in the story you're telling yourself? How can you set yourself up so that, you can't lean upon the bedtime story, or it's less comfortable to lean upon the bedtime story? because you've got to look good, right? And the other piece, here I go with my crazy spelling again, is this response able. And I quite often call it response-ableness, a bit like awesomeness. We can all be responsible, but this response-able is more about bringing a conscious awareness to how we show up in the world, how we respond to circumstances and situations versus react. Okay, react can be a bit of a knee-jerk piece, and in that way, it lives under the bedtime story category. But when we respond, when we actually take a conscious awareness approach to how we respond to circumstance and situation, that's a different kettle of fish altogether. And it really links in beautifully to our power and sense of ownership, our sense of accountability, and like I say, our sense of response, our ability to respond awesomely. Above the line thinking proactively and thinking with possibility and allowing ourselves to dream in a way of pursuing what it is that we most desire to do, looking for ways to make things happen and tap into our wisdom. So, ego is not the enemy, beautiful people. These three hardwired needs around looking good, being right, and knowing, these hardwired needs are no different to blinking and breathing. They're hardwired, right? We blink as part of our eye health, and we breathe. I mean, to breathe is to live, right? Breath is life. But we can train ourselves to flutter our eyelashes or our eyelids, I should say. We can wink and blink. We can hold our breath. So we can train ourselves to do this. The same is true with ego. We can train ourselves to actually let go of some of this stuff, to risk not looking good, to risk letting others know that maybe you don't have the answers and that you're not attached to having to be right. Really powerful pieces when we think about it. So take a moment to reflect here around how often are your bedtime stories really the needs of your ego being expressed. Think about when you lay blame or offer up an excuse or even just keep your head in the sand in that place of denial. How much of that is actually around self-preservation? Hey, I couldn't help. Don't blame me. It's not my fault. I couldn't help it that such and such didn't show up. Yeah, look at that. You've actually just made somebody else look bad or something else look bad because you look awesome. Or do you? Right? What if we actually parked that stuff just for a moment? What if we did risk for a moment instead of the blame conversation? What if we parked that piece and actually went, you know what, I actually accept that. I own that I didn't maybe show up in the way that I potentially could have, and I recognize that I've probably let so-and-so down, and for that I genuinely apologize. That's a totally different conversation than to follow up with, what could I do differently? What do I need to do to help you in this point in time? All of a sudden, you go from, the self-preservation, trying not to look bad, to looking absolutely spectacular because you've come from a place of service. You've actually put the spotlight onto somebody else and how can you show up to help them? When we park the needs of ego in that sense of self-preservation and swap in the needs of others so that we suddenly come from a place of service, a place of contribution, a place of adding value and difference, suddenly you actually look spectacularly awesome. But it's not about looking spectacularly awesome. It's actually about living, breathing, making choices that are anchored in the awesome side of your attitudinal ledger. All right? So as we move forward, this is phase 1, okay? Let's get into some awesome ego training. When we come from a place of service, when we make those that we serve, intentionally or accidentally, when we make them the hero, awesomeness is the result. not just for you either, by the way. Awesomeness has this wonderful way of magnifying all those that you come into contact with. So yeah, you look awesome, but so do those around you, and so do those that you've been serving. So what can we do to rewrite the stories? Rewrite the stories that you are telling yourself. Because remember, the most important words you are ever going to speak and hear are those words that you speak to yourself, about yourself, when you're by yourself. How do you want to nurture that kind of thinking? How do you want to connect in that space? So while you're in this zone, just stay still for a little minute longer. Grab your pen, grab your journal. What stood out for you today? What did you notice today from this message? Get it down. Check your self-talk. Really listen to yourself. Pay attention to the stories that are occupying your mind. And in preparation for our next video, you won't get it tomorrow, you get it the next day. See if you can identify some consistent bedtime stories you tell yourself. What are the themes around blame, excuse, and denial that run rampant through the magnificence of your mind? And if you could, here we go, dare to dream a tiny bit. Just dare to dream, if you will. Humour me. Humour yourself. Give yourself permission to connect to your most ideal, awesome story. What would you most love to be able to share with yourself, share with those around you, and share more broadly if you could? Get it down. You don't have to write a big story, just a couple of keywords. Or maybe you draw in pictures, whatever works for you. This is your story, your journey. Connect with it, beautiful people. Connect with it. I promise you, if everything happens for a reason, this is worth sharing. This is your awesomeness trying to break through. So thank you for connecting with me today. And I really hope it's given an opportunity for you to connect with yourself. The next video will arrive not tomorrow, but the next day. In the meantime, I'd love to hear from you. If you want to drop me an email with your thoughts and feedback from today, please do so. It'd be great to hear your thoughts. In the meantime, have an awesome day. Ciao for now. Bye.